Hi, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from YourBlackWorld.com, and I wanted to talk about something that a lot of you have probably discussed around the dinner table or with your friends, and it is the state of black women, relationships, faith, family, all that stuff. And I wanted to talk about this provocative new book that's been released by the person next to me named Deborrah Cooper. Deborrah Cooper's book is called The Black Church, where women pray and men pray. And the words pray are spelled differently each time. Women are praying and men are praying, P-R-E-Y, according to the book. So without further ado, I want to give Deb a chance to talk about the book and tell us what it's all about. So first of all, Deb, I want to ask, how are you today?
I'm just great. A little early for me, so I got my caffeine reinforcement right here.
Well, I know you're on West Coast time, so I appreciate you being a soldier and hopping up with me, because it's funny because I'm still on European time because I just got back from a trip to Europe. So literally I am waking up like 1 o'clock in the morning and doing a full day of work. So by the time the afternoon hits, it's like bedtime for me. It's freaking me out. I can't take it.
Oh, wow.
But
I guess it's good we caught you.
I know, right? I know. But I'm really dying to hear about your book, because, the title is very provocative. The book is, as we talked about before, it's in keeping with this really great article that you wrote a couple of years ago called, How the Black Church Keeps Women Single and Lonely. I want to say that's the title.
Right.
And you can correct me if I'm wrong. And, and that article got millions and millions of reads. You said that, according to your estimates, it's broken the 3 million mark, which is huge.
Yes.
I think I've written a couple articles that have broke 1 million, but I don't think I've ever written anything that's got 3 million. So that's awesome. I applaud you for that.
Me either.
That's not easy to do. So Deb, tell us about your book and what point are you making, with this book?
Well, the book is, after that article that you're talking about came out, that was in June of 2010. It's called The Black Church, How Black Churches Keep African American Women Single and Lonely. When that article hit, it caused, people just went crazy. But it was just an article, there wasn't a lot of depth to it, and it actually raised more questions than it provided answers for a lot of people. So over the period of the following year and a half, I realized that there needed to be a deeper exploration. So I started preparing to write this book. Now, over the course of that, of course, there are a lot of cases that came out in the media, in the news, that showed different kinds of praying activity going on in black churches. So I addressed those as well. So not only do I talk in the book about black women being victimized and manipulated in ways that keep them single, I also delve into the sexual abuses of women and children and the financial abuses and the power abuses. So the book is very broad in scope. It basically was written to bring awareness to these things for people that they go to church and they don't really pay too much attention to what's going on. And it provides insight, and it dares the readers to challenge their belief systems about religion and church. Now, I think it's very important that people understand, I am not, nowhere in this book am I telling people not to believe in God. Nowhere in this book am I saying don't believe in Jesus. I need to make that very clear because a lot of people make assumptions based on the title. All I'm talking about is people that take your belief in those entities and in religion and use it against you. And I'm going through step by step explaining how they do it, how the games are run, and setting out the wide variety of gangs that are used to do those kinds of acts against women and children.
So I think this is an important point. I mean, you're basically saying that you're not attacking the church. You're certainly not attacking women who go to church. You are simply saying use your head. Don't allow the predators that might be in the church to take advantage of you. And I think that's a valid point because we know that there are predators in every church, right? You go to the Catholic Church, you got the priests who molested the little boys, and it was a systemic thing. And one of the biggest challenges was that part of the reason that it was allowed to go on for so long is because people were afraid to question the church leadership about what they were doing. When you look at what happened when you look at Eddie Long and really every week there's a scandal about some pastor doing some stuff he wasn't supposed to be doing. You find that much of this occurs because we don't question the church leadership and use our heads when it comes to deciding how we're going to conduct our faith. So let me ask you this. Did you in your own life, what are your experiences with the church that maybe led you to take this stand? Because you've taken some pretty bold stands when it comes to black women's relationship with the church. And I've even disagreed with you on quite a few things, but I respect you, which is why we're having this conversation. So what is it that has occurred in your experience that led you to feel so passionate about expressing this particular point of view?
Nothing. I mean, people often come to that conclusion that, that as if that's the only reason that a person would have a criticism of an institution like the black church. And I admit that I believe I'm like one of just few black female voices taking such a stance. And when I wrote the article in 2010 that you covered, I got a lot of fearful emails from women saying, how dare you? I've never heard of a woman doing anything like that. Sister, you are brave. And, there was a lot of that kind of statements going on. But I think I'm just the kind of person, Dr. Boyce, I really don't care who you are or what you represent or what your organization is about. If you're doing something wrong and you have a set standard of behavior and performance that you're supposed to be adhering to and you don't do it, just like any other business, you deserve to be criticized and you deserve to be examined. People should not, just because it's a church, automatically assume that everything going on there is perfect and wonderful and right. Just like any other business entity, which is all churches are a business, they have to be accountable for the services they provide and the money that they collect and the duties and obligations that they have to the members and the community. And I've been seeing a lot of excuses made in that regard, and I'm just calling them out on it. It's, I don't have any personal vendetta. I mean, I'm not invested in it. There's no animosity against it. Some of my best friends go to church.
Some of my best friends are black.
Exactly.
Well, I want to ask you this, Deb. Black women, I saw a study recently that said black women are the most religious demographic in America, more religious than anybody else, Asians, Hispanics, whites, everybody.
Yeah.
Do you have any theories on why that's the case? Why so many? Because I don't think I know a single black woman. I might know, let's say out of 50 black women I know, I might know 4 who don't go to church regularly, and I will see, many of my black female friends that will go to church and take notes as the pastor's talking and go to church several days a week. And especially when you go to the South, I mean, really. And it was interesting because, when I was younger, when I was definitely determined to get married, I remember I would meet women who would just say, I can't marry you because you don't go to church the way I do.
Right. And
I thought that was interesting because I'd be like, wait a minute. You got some people that are going to church every Sunday who are acting like damn heathens when they get out. I mean, I might look at her and be like, well, wait a minute, you were at the club the night before and you went to church. But
exactly.
So in a way, it's very interesting because it's almost like, it almost seems that I'm wondering if church is a place where we sort of almost like taking a bath, where you do what you do all week and you cleanse yourself on Sundays and then you start over again. You think that that's how some people see the church, or and I guess I really actually tailed my first question with a second question. So my first question would be, why do you think so many black women are religious? And do you think that maybe there's that our current state of affairs calls for a re-examination of how we see our faith and what it really means to connect to God? What are your thoughts on that? And feel free to not answer if you don't have a opinion on it.
Oh no, that is something, because in the 2010 article I referenced the study, the PEW study that found that that demographic was the most religious in the nation, which was really interesting and kind of disturbing, because if you have people that all follow a certain type of belief in a large number, which would be like 80% of black females in America, that means that they have what I call groupthink. And if you have everyone who's thinking a certain way and has a certain expectation, it makes it very easy to manipulate that group in very large numbers. And I go into great, this is the cover of the book. Let me see if I can show it right here. This is the cover of the book. And I go into great detail about how that is accomplished and how that is used against women. So again, I'm not saying don't be religious. I'm trying to get people to understand there's a downside to everything. And going to church is putting yourself in an environment, God is everywhere. If you really believe that God does not reside at Third Baptist or, First Corner, whatever, he's everywhere. So going to church is not necessarily where you have to go to commune with God. Understand what's going on in that building and how it may hurt you. As far as the second part of your question, which I forgot because it was so long, was it the second part?
Well, I think I was asking if this calls for a re-examination of how we view faith, or maybe it just is what it is. Where you do have people that do things in church that are incredibly problematic and unethical, but yet somehow they feel that it's okay to do that because they are grounded in scripture. They can quote Bible verses and they show up in church every Sunday, but they're out doing, some people are doing some pretty horrible stuff.
Horrible. Yeah. Well, what I found is a favorite phrase, because, when I'm jamming people up in this book, and going through on a case by case basis. And what a lot of people, objected to was, you're not supposed to do things like that. The Bible says, touch not my anointed ones. And I'm like, okay, you know what? These guys don't have diplomatic immunity from God. I mean, what are you talking about? And, if you really, and what I've also found here is that a lot of people never read the Bible. So you got sisters toting around a Bible and, quoting these scriptures. They never read those things for themselves, Dr. Boyce. It was shocking how many people, you got people in their 40s, they should have read the book cover to cover several times over their lifetime. Not one time. So they're depending upon a pastor to read and interpret the words of the Bible for them. And I admit reading King James and, all this stuff is very complicated kind of reading. It is very difficult to interpret the meaning of those words. But then get a living Bible. I mean, know what you're supposed to know. Don't put that interpretation in the hands of someone else, because that is a setup for you to be manipulated based upon that person's belief system and what they want to get out of you. You can't always, just because someone's in the pulpit does not mean that that's the right kind of person. And if we've seen so much evidence of that, this book is filled with stories of pastors and ministers that did things they really had no business doing. So I'm really trying to get the women to understand the games and then to go through the process of making these men accountable and vetting them before they really put too much trust and faith in them.
Well, I stand with you on what you're doing with this, because I think that calling for greater accountability of men is very important. Some of the most heinous human beings I've ever met actually became pastors. And it really would stun me when this individual would have the power to control minds. And you would see where this man is using this power to get what we know that men tend to want to get, and it was just absolutely fascinating to me. And so I think that what you're saying here is not to say that going to church is bad, or that all black churches are evil, or that religion is always a bad thing. It sounds like you're just saying, learn how to think for yourself. Don't let anybody, men or anyone else, tell you what to think. You need to think for yourself. And I agree with that 100%, because that's something that's in line with something I always tell people, because it's funny, because being a professor and doing what I do at Your Black World, I've noticed that sometimes I would get pastor-like power over people, where people would look to me, like one woman actually said, there was a woman, in Atlanta who follows, the stuff that we do. And she was a big fan. Every now and then, every now and then I'll bump into somebody who knows me better than I know myself. And that's a little bit weird, but I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I remember she said to her friend, she said, well, I don't believe that something is true unless Dr. Boyce says that it's true. I stopped her right then. I said, no, you got to confirm that for yourself, because I could be playing you and manipulating you. Think for yourself. So I think that what you're saying is in line with that, and I agree. And so I want to ask you this as our final question before we bounce out of here. How can people go get your book, and how can they be a part of the ongoing conversation?
They can participate in go onto the website set up for the book. It's Women Pray, Men Pray. You spelled, Pray for the women and Prey for the men.com. And you can find there's information on how to order the book, as well as some testimonials from people that have already read it up there. Right now, the book is available on Lulu.com. We're going to be on Amazon as soon as they get their act together and put it up. I don't know what's taking so long. And BarnesandNoble.com. So it will be available in a lot of online retailers. You can also go into your local bookstore and just order it by title. They can find it for you. If you don't want to shop online, they can bring it into the store for you. So, yeah, and I think one thing I wanted to close out with this one thing that I think makes this book really different is, me, Dr. Boyce, I'm going to just go in and tell it. In one of the chapters is called The Pimp Game of Religion. And what I do is break down the 10-step process that pimps use to convert. No, I'm telling you, the 10-step process that pimps use to convert women into their stable, it is the same game that pastors use in church. And I spell it out in detail.
Well, I hear what you say, because I've seen a lot of pimps in the pulpit. But I also think that we need to be very clear that you're not talking about all pastors.
No.
Like my daddy's
just
pastor.
The ones that do. Right. The ones that do these behaviors.
And
right.
they know who they are. They know who they are. And I can say, as a man who has seen a lot of backroom conversations amongst other men, there are scenarios where you get a sense that there are men who don't understand the responsibility that comes with having power. And that, in fact, the scariest thing to me in the world is a pastor who has not really accomplished anything else in his life, so his source of power or his source of achievement comes from the fact that he's running a church. And the thing is that ultimately for young men, in many cases, we have egos. We have, we thirst to obtain power at a young age, especially when we're ambitious, because that's how you get women to like you. That's how you get men to respect you. So unfortunately, in the church or in politics as well, I think that the best leaders, the best pastors, the best politicians tend to be people who've been able to get their ego filled by doing something else. Maybe you become CEO of a corporation, you made $1 million or whatever, and then your ego's out of the way, and then you're able to lead with conscientiousness and responsibility. And so, because I can tell you that the temptations to exploit your power are unbelievably strong for a lot of men, all men, myself. I've struggled with that in terms of finding ways to make sure that I remain ethically balanced, because I'll see guys, I'm telling you, when you get more power, first of all, you have women throwing themselves at you sometimes, and you have people tempting you with money and work to sort of manipulate your thinking in ways that are just not good for the people that you're leading. So you have to be aware of it to move away from it. I think for a lot of these young guys who get the chance to head a church, they haven't necessarily gone through that process, and they end up doing things that get them in a lot of trouble later on and end up hurting people in the process. So I'm glad this book was written. I think people should check it out. I think also people should hear other points of view as well, and hear from members of the Black church and pastors and others who can give them all the perspectives. So at the end of the day, you can make your own decision. So thank you very much for your
You are very welcome.
Deborah.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk again, because we haven't talked for a while, so we got to talk more. We talk on Facebook all the time.
We got to catch up.
Yeah. Anybody wants to see Deb going at it, go to my Facebook page. Deb is always in there fighting with somebody about something. But that's all right. I can't get mad that she's a fighter, because I'm a fighter too. So thank you very much for checking us out at yourblackworld.com. And until we meet again, please stay strong, be blessed, and be educated. We are gone. Peace.